Roll call. Oops. I guess we'll wait just a minute. Hmm? And we'll do it at the time. Okay, roll call.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
And Wanda, do you want to bring your mic around and? Thank you. That's okay. Public comment, I'm going to have Scott Herman come up and introduce the person who is internship this summer.
So thank you, Mayor. You don't know, my name is Scott Herman. I'm with the police department, and I just kind of wanted to introduce Sarah Mickelson. Sarah, if you want to come up here real quick. Sarah is a student at Winona State. She actually grew up in the area and went to Decorah High School. You probably know the Mickelson family, but she's going to be interning with, or she actually is interning with the police department this summer. So you'll probably see her around quite a bit. She's working anywhere from 3 to 4 days a week. So we have her a lot. We're trying to expose her to a lot of different day-to-day activities that we encounter at the police department, and some that maybe we do, some that we don't. But so she's doing some special trainings, riding with officers. This is kind of something I guess I wanted her to experience as well. She was in the meeting this morning with the department heads, and I thought it was important that the mayor and the city council got to meet her as well. So this is Sarah.
Welcome.
Well, it's been great having you here, and we'll look forward to seeing you throughout the summer. Thank you.
Thanks.
Consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the June 7th, June 14th, and June 16th meetings. Claims. Item C, Resolution 3198, extending the salary period for the interim city manager. That extends Resolution 3167 that you passed back in early March. Fiscal 20, or item D, the fiscal 22 cigarette, tobacco, nicotine, and vapor permits. And item E, the engineering services agreement with Erdman Engineering for asphalt work for the Main Street area.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Johnson, second by Carlson. Any further comments? Roll call.
Carlson,
Johnson first.
Johnson,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Neal. Aye. Hadley.
Aye.
Chisholm.
Aye.
Sittergren.
Aye.
Public hearing amending chapter 1504 C3 design criteria. You want to give some background just before we do the public hearing?
Sure. So this was something that was brought up by the Planning and Zoning Commission back in March. And it has to do with, right now, the process for the C3 design signs goes to Planning and Zoning and then comes back to council. Okay, so they are suggesting, and it passed unanimously by Planning and Zoning, that the zoning administrator handle this administratively, and staff handles it administratively in the office without going to Planning and Zoning, and make it like it is with every other zoning district. To their recollection, I mean, they had never denied one, because by the time it gets to them, it meets all the criteria that the sign needs to meet to be applicable. So it just streamlines that process for the applicant.
So for
And-
some reason, C3 was different than the other.
C3 was different than the rest of the city
Okay.
for signs.
Okay.
So they're
I'll-
proposing that we make it all the same.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'm close the public hearing. Consider ordinance 1277 approving amending chapter 1504 C3 design criteria. It's a first reading. Motion made by Chisel,
Second.
second by Carlson. Any discussion?
I've just got a quick question. The sort of the downtown nature of C3 and that being so important to Decorah, I understand why there might be different criteria for how things are done, but my question is, does planning and zoning strictly apply the criteria of the code when considering sign applications? And if the sign application meets the code's criteria, they go with it, or do they take up matters of aesthetic and design? Does that question make sense? Have they ever told someone your sign fits the code, but it would bruise our downtown's image or whatever? Okay,
No,
and then I'm fine with this change. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't robbing ourselves of a.
no. And actually, historic preservation has made a list of guidelines that every applicant gets. And so they kind of work with historic preservation too for those signs in the downtown district. And so they will receive that, and Greg will continue to work with historic preservation on those signs as well. So,
No further discussion. Roll call.
Chisel.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Neal. Aye. Luce.
Aye.
Sittergroon.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Was there any comment?
Move to waive the
Okay.
second, third reading and adopt.
Second.
Chisel moved to approve the second and waive the third. Seconded by Steve
Steve,
Ziergroen.
yeah.
Any further discussion?
Have we gotten any letters or any feedback on this at all?
Was this in the Dropbox? Then I just didn't see it.
Yeah, it should have been.
It was.
What's the?
What's it under?
I guess I honestly don't have my iPad in front of me, so. But the ordinance should have
'Cause I
been in
didn't
there.
see it when I looked at everything this week's
I
meeting.
wonder if
I'd like
it
to take
was,
another look at it before we approve the second and third, so.
okay,
It doesn't change the ordinance other than streamlining the process. I mean, that's the only change in it.
Sure, I'd just like to look over
Yeah,
it
yeah, you're
before
right.
I-
The language wasn't in there, just the background. That's what I was remembering.
Okay, okay.
I'm all for second readings when we aren't pressured.
okay.
I'll withdraw.
I guess, do we still vote?
Randy withdrew his motion.
I
Okay with
withdraw
your,
my motion.
okay, very good. We'll put it on the next agenda as a second reading. Consider public hearing for a driveway easement with Three Chick Rentals LLC.
Okay, since John Anderson has been working with Car Auto on this and Kelly Bellchelder, I'm going to have him explain this.
This easement is part of the negotiations that went on with Three Chicks Rentals. And the reason you're reviewing it now for approval as to before is that as we were preparing for the closing, there were several easement agreements that the parties were working on agreeing to the terms. Two of the other ones were already approved, but those were easements the city was receiving. This is an easement the city actually grants, and under Iowa code, an easement that we grant anytime we're conveying an interest in real estate, we have to have a public hearing, and because of the publication requirements, that's why this is being done now. But the parties, especially the buyer, wanted to get the closing done, and I think we wanted to get the Fox and Coon Club conveyed. And so this is follow-up to that. And this easement is on the west side of the property, adjacent to the flood control area. And it's currently unimproved. I think it's just a gravel drive. And in the future, any improvements that are done are at the expense of Three Chicks Rentals or whoever owns that property. But the city still has concurrent use of that drive, especially for flood control projects.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Consider Resolution 3199 approving a driveway easement with Three Chicks Rental LLC.
I'll move we approve Resolution 3199 as presented.
Motion made by Hadley, seconded by Chisel. Any further discussion?
Is the 90 days in the agreement, is that a deviation from the standard? Is that why that's bolded in red?
Yeah. That was one of the terms we were negotiating as far as what would be reasonable notice. And I think it's in red because it was a change from a prior draft. So between the parties, we highlighted that just so everybody knew what the most recent change was.
Do you think that's reasonable?
Well, reasonable's in the eye of the beholder, I would say. And that's what, and I think when, for
Our
us,
legal counsel, do you believe that it's
for us, it was reasonable under the circumstances. I got to look at it. Is that referring to terminating
yes?
the easement? And a little bit of background on that. Typically, we have started in recent years to provide when we grant an easement. I think we did this for Good Times Grill with their patio easement and some other easements, that we can terminate those easements for certain reasons on certain notice. And I think in this case, kind of the length of that notice depends upon the nature of the improvements that go in there. And I think the idea with that 90 days was, if this is their only way that they have developed for their customers to get to the property, they got to have, there may be a situation where we need to terminate it, especially for like a flood control reason. And aside from an emergency, we want to give them time to get an alternative route in place. So I defer to Jeremy on whether you can get a driveway in 90 days or not, but I think that's what the parties agreed.
But the
agreed
Corps of
to.
Engineers is not going to do anything in under 90 days.
And we could use it for an emergency anyway.
Right, and there's another access for flood control purposes on the north. We received an easement from Three Chicks Rentals, or retained an easement. There's a little triangle in the very north that comes right off of Highway 52. So we have a couple of ways of accessing the flood control area.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call?
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Zittergrun.
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Does that require 3 readings?
No, that's just a,
That
the
sounds good.
resolution.
Thank you. Consider ad hoc committee's consultant recommendation for the proposed new fire station. Wanda, you want to give some background on that?
I will do what I can here. So our ad hoc committee, which was Jeff Odie, Mike Ashbacker, Zach Current, the mayor, and myself, met with 3 different groups: Ethos Design Group, Brenton Architect and Engineers, and Emergent Architecture, to just meet with them and talk to them a little bit about our project, and to give them an opportunity to make a little presentation. We have unanimously agreed on Brenton Architect and Engineers for the following reasons. They have expertise in design of public safety buildings. It's pretty much one-stop shopping. They got structural design and civil engineers on staff, although we can use our own civil engineer if desired. And of course, we have 2 on staff now, so that's to our benefit. The president and CEO is a lead design architect with 30 years of experience and over a decade of volunteer firefighter experience. It's an award-winning public safety design firm. They look at the sensitivity to the life, safety, and welfare of the firemen and the people occupying the building. They have self-developed site evaluation and selection matrix. They have a self-developed 3D modeling program allowing for visual 3D details of the proposed finished product, interior and exterior. And they have a history of completing the finished project within the budget. So those are the reasons that we chose them. And I think, you know, you've seen, I'm sure, on the printout I gave you here, each firm has a different approach to fees, and it's really difficult to discern exactly what some of it means. So I've kind of outlined it as best I can for you, And if you had a chance to look at the different proposals that were in the Dropbox, I don't know if you have any questions. I know Jeff and Zach went and looked at a couple of buildings that they had designed on Friday, and maybe they want to give comment or two.
Are
You
we-
want, do you have anything you
Is
want to
this,
add?
this is for construction of the new station exclusively, not for the remodeling of the existing space, correct?
Well, that depends on council. Now, any of these three can also do the remodel, and some
Is
of it,
this,
some of it
is
is
the
in the
money that you're
pricing.
showing in your ad hoc committee recommendation? So for example, if you're recommending Brunton, $20,500, does that include the potential design cost at that same rate? Or would it be a separate contract for the design change or the design retrofit to our existing building?
It said that was an à la carte add-on that we could do, and it would be cost of materials and labor. So
Mhm.
it's not included in this. Like, we could use a different.
We are
firm.
not recommending we are not, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, we can just limit this right now to simply the new fire station.
Okay.
And what we're
well,
gonna
and
do
part
with
of
it.
it's evaluating also other aspects of, locations. If you're considering, like if you have so many locations you wanted, and also as far as the properties that we currently have.
Right.
Yeah, my point was just that nothing about historic preservation was indicated in these.
Yeah.
This building being historically
Right.
Yeah.
important.
Yep.
I would maybe look at a different matrix of qualifications than
Right.
I would be for this. So I wanted to clarify that this was exclusively for the construction of a new building.
And we did talk briefly about that. Well, I was not able to be at the first one,
Mhm.
but I was at the second two. And we did talk about that with the second two, about the historic aspects of this building and wanting to keep at least the outside
Right.
of the building as historically, that was going to be a consideration
Right.
with that
You had
piece.
a question?
I do. So at this point, after we would approve this consultant, then what do we task them to do with first? Is this when they're going to go out and look at different sites? And do we then need to say what sites we want looked at, or I just want a review of the process here.
Correct.
They would want to know what sites, because I believe it's $2,500 per site to evaluate.
Right.
So it's not that we can just say, drive around town and pick a site.
Right.
We'll want to limit that. And we've picked out a few, I guess. There may be more. I think once we've went down the road of we have an architect now, I think we need to have a committee of more than just us. It
Yeah.
needs to involve some council people and potentially other community members. I don't know how we want that committee to look, but to pick these sites, and I would hope maybe 3 sites would be the right number. And then they do their evaluation. They take the cost of the property if we don't already own it, the cleaning it, the obviously prepping it, and then they also look at which we have already printed out for public safety meeting, the amount of calls that you have in certain areas and your response times to certain areas. How will a change in location affect that? And is that important to us? Which it is important to us, but our dollar values, important too. So.
Sure.
So I think, what we need to do is we have to get an architect first,
Right.
and then we gotta find a site, and then we gotta design a building, and then we gotta figure out what's the cost of this gonna be, and are we moving forward from there?
Sure. So what I'm hearing is we need to pick the architect and then form a committee to find the
I think
sites.
we need to have
Or
a,
is that going to come to council?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Is council going to decide the sites, or do we want a committee to decide the sites?
our committee
Well-
started, with Chad, obviously.
Right, right.
And it was very informal. He had picked the first 2, I think, architects, and then we found the third. And
I guess I'm I'm totally fine picking the architect. There's a little part of me that wants to have a new city manager involved in this process, since it's going to
Correct.
obviously
Mhm.
involve them in the long run.
Correct.
So I don't want to slow this down, and I'm not suggesting that we do, but if we do anything, then I would suggest that a lot of the council has a say in where it goes, at least.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
No, I think that
But-
the council would have to decide
Sure.
the sites that they have.
Yeah,
But- But to be able to have somebody who professionally would look and be able to evaluate the potential sites that the council would be considering would be of great importance, I think, in order to at least get a plan. moving.
This is a lengthy process.
No,
Yeah,
I know it
is.
is.
It's not something going to happen by next week.
No, I get it. I just, I see this timeline of city manager, and I think one of the pluses of getting a new city manager is you get new eyes on a community, right? New eyes
Correct.
That might have ideas that haven't been thought of, and I don't want to not have that opportunity.
No,
for the person
we would
coming in.
have to be able to have the new city manager be involved as well.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I don't know if this is what Emily's saying, but I would want the possible sites before we spend money on evaluating or before the council gets, hey, we evaluated these 3 sites, now pick one. I want the list of sites they're going to evaluate to be up for discussion. And that might have to be closed if we don't own the property, right? Is that-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jeff, what sites did you guys check out that Brunson's done before?
We went to Albert Lee
Okay.
on Friday, and then we went up to Hudson, Wisconsin. And we wanted to get to Monticello, Minnesota, but the chief was gone and it just wasn't going to work out. And we didn't want to do 3 in one day. It turned out to be a 14-hour day the way it was. But both stations are a concrete slab type construction. We wanted to see that. We had never seen that before. I don't know if
Oh,
we'd even.
precast
Yeah,
walls?
Precast, yep.
Mhm.
And very interesting, something to look at. Obviously, the steel construction, and then there's, block, whatever. But, we talked about their experience with Brunton, went great. I talked to the Monticello chief today. We didn't see their building, but when we were talking about engineering changes and things that design changes during, he said there was absolutely minimal. All the changes were firefighter driven because they were actually under budget and they had more money to spend, so they spent it.
No.
But
Shocking.
No, I'm not super familiar with.
but to come in under budget, that was
Sure.
good.
Are those towns all of comparable size to Decorah? Because I'm just
Well,
wondering.
Albert Lee's bigger.
Albert Lee's a
obviously.
little bit bigger, right?
It's bigger.
Maybe twice the
Both
size.
the Monticello and they built an area for living quarters. They didn't finish that. And Hudson went ahead and finished their living quarters, but they currently don't have any, but their area is growing to the point where they're going to most likely add that.
Sure. Because their buildings look awesome. I just don't know
Yeah.
if they're used to doing smaller communities or maybe something in our budget. Because some of these look really amazing.
Mhm.
But I don't know if there would be probably a little too large for a town like Decorah.
There was an informational packet a couple
Yeah, right.
meetings ago that had some similar size fire stations in terms of number of bays. I remember we were talking about bays.
Sure, but
Yeah.
these ones have,
Yeah.
some of the ones he mentioned have 6, 7, 10 bays.
Yeah.
We're not looking at that.
I think-
We're looking at.
Yeah.
And wasn't the fact, their experience of dealing with fire stations of different sizes and small, and the intricacies of what's needed in a fire station itself
Mm-hmm.
was advantageous.
And
To
didn't,
add training features inside and those things. And then, obviously, carcinogens are a big thing now, to try and design it so that when you come back from a call, your dirty stuff stays in one area and it gets cleaned as you progress through. And then you got your warm zones and then your cold zones where there's no gear beyond this point. Currently, we come back from a call and people walk in with their gear on because there's no restroom out, not available. So and of course, it's awfully tight. We currently have 10 trucks, so 10 of those doors are already full. And with the potential of adding a hazmat trailer and something to pull that, now we're at 11, and that doesn't leave us much empty space.
I'd make a motion to approve Brunton if contingent upon the 7.5% design cost fee, because I know that they made the comment that you'd already done a large percentage of the work because of providing
They
the,
all kind of said
providing,
that, but
yeah.
they are the only one that did say, and I kind of liked it, is the first two were, applauded us for all our hard work. And they said, well, you've done a lot of good work here, but it still might have to be picked apart and changed.
Sure.
It's not like you're going to
But-
build this building.
But nod to your work.
Yeah,
I think that 0.5% could come off
Well, actually, that would be a separate contract, I believe, because that's, what we're talking here is up into a bond issue. And then those percentages, I believe, are for what, if you hired them then to build the building, right? Am I right on that?
It's very unclear. So I think that's something that we have to
Because a lot of
clarify with
them,
them.
I mean, like the ethos, if you read inside their cover letter, it says they worked with this, and this. If you look, all they did was take them to the bond issue, and another design firm actually built the buildings.
I think, I mean, the way I read the Brunton proposal was that there's 20,000 and change, different costs here and there. And that would be taken off of their architectural fees if we proceeded with
If we
them as
proceed with
the
them.
building architect.
Yep,
But this just gets us to design and a bond proposal
correct.
for $20,000 that would be rebated to us if we went with them. Is that,
Yeah, most of it was, the things that apply would.
Yeah.
Things, the time and materials to come to the bond issue probably doesn't, but any of the design work does.
I've got a big question, and I hinted to you earlier today on the phone that I was going to ask it because I just want to make sure we're doing due diligence. I know that this was a priority for Chad, and I know a lot of people sort of seem to say that it's just obvious that we need a new fire station. And I just wonder if maybe we could change the scope of this, work with them to get their assessment of any potential for a retrofit and rebuild in place with potential savings of cost. I know our footprint here is constricted, but I think that when we're talking about spending the kind of money we're committing to spending, I'm nervous that there's this presumption going in that we need a fire station. I know about the problems with the concrete floor. I know about the space constraints. And we talked a lot today about the ways in which the current footprint of the facility has safety issues and workability issues. And I guess I'm fully aware of all that, but I'm also, I know that I've talked to people in town who think that the reason we need a new fire station is that a fire truck could fall into the basement. Now, there's no basement under there. It's a slab on bad dirt. And it would take, I once read a report that says it would cost something like $200,000 to sink new pilings down and then pour you a floor that would hold up a truck. That seems like a lot of money, but $200,000 is also a lot cheaper than a new fire station. And I guess, has that conversation been had exhaustively? Has there been,
I know that I was clear when I talked to all three of them, that I was interested in getting somebody
good.
that could come in, could evaluate what we have, both on property or wherever, or evaluate the potential of another location, if we had other locations, so that we had somebody of expertise that could come in and say, this would work, this wouldn't work, and so I was pretty clear when I talked to all three of the people that was one of the goals that I had.
I mean, I hope that's what we're getting for this money, or if that's an add-on service they can provide, because if there's an option to spend, and these are just totally made up numbers, $6.5 million to get 90% of what we want in our current space versus spending, several million more to get exactly what we want in a new space, I think that option needs to be on the table.
I
Well,
know
I think it's-
there wasn't a total plan for what this building was going to be, but I know that was one of the reasons that it started was, with talking to Chad, was more administrative room, potentially, not quite sure what the ideas were, but,
Right. Well,
So-
it was the space needs administratively, it was space
Mhm.
needs for law enforcement center. I mean, both of our areas in Park Rec are kind of bursting at the seams. So
they're-
every department needs more space. So that was part of the equation with building a new fire station too. And then that would be retrofitting this building and allowing everybody in this building to have more space as well.
which is an interesting, like, as you said that, I thought, well, what is it? I mean, we could go on with the complications of this, right? But what does it look like to renovate the fire? I mean, it would be good to know what it costs to renovate the fire station.
Correct.
Because at some point, maybe it's actually better to renovate the fire station if they need more space, include this, and then look for new space for administration and Park Rec, because they have less constraints on where they can be,
Right.
right? So we could put our administration
Right.
in Park Rec downtown in a way, we can't put our fire station
My
down
thought
there.
today was it was cheaper to build an office building than a fire station. And now
Well, it
that
is-
said, I know this is a huge question, but I just feel like we've all been charging ahead with this unasked
Yep.
assumption that we definitely need a new fire station. And I assume that at some point there'd been a really careful analysis of the possibility of working with our current fire station and spending less money.
And I think if the school has taught us anything, we probably should have that in hand. We should be able to say like, we've looked at this and what
Right.
it would cost to remodel and what our potential is here, because I think if we're going to have to pass a bond referendum, we're going to get asked that question. And the quickest way to sink it is if we haven't done our due diligence. to
Well, and
look
I
at what we
think
have.
that, by hiring somebody like this to be able to evaluate those pieces, that's really what I feel is the important part, so that at least we have an idea to go by.
We did talk about, just internally with ourselves and our staff, about alternative places we could take City Hall. And so we did have those conversations. There just didn't seem to be a lot of options. The one option that we kind of thought was maybe out there at the time is no longer a possibility. So, I mean, so that's a challenge too, is finding some place to
Well, there's
take Park
plenty of
Rec and
challenges.
City Hall, and then what to do with the police department.
I mean, related to tonight's decision, I know we're getting kind of a field here. It's just, I feel like due diligence requires it. Related to tonight's decision, I'd be fine accepting this proposal, provided that analysis of our current site was part of the conversation, and that we got a report from Brunton saying you'd be spending just as much money to get a slightly worse fire station. Or, it's just a non-starter for these reasons. You know.
This was one of the sites that we've been trying to come up with. I can tell by the conversation previous, though, the historical value of this building and stuff, that replacing the building isn't probably on the table, but replacing the garage could be.
Is replacing the building really off the table? I mean, I get that it's a historic building, but if it came down to saving the city.
And that could be
think
millions-
talked
That's
about in
part
these.
of the evaluation process.
No, but I don't think that's off the
Okay,
table.
Okay.
No, this was one of the sites. It
Mhm.
could be,
Right.
it's a little tight with everything else that is here, but it's worth drawing out. And
Right.
And
Well, and-
the document does say
Yeah, it does.
20,500 for existing facility eval as the first
Yep.
item. So I would guess that would,
Well,
I
and
just don't want
suitability.
that. I just want the evaluation to not just be toward, this is why it falls short and why we need to build you a station. I want an evaluation that tells us if there's any hope of using what we have, if it saves the city a bunch of money.
because I clearly said I would like this whole campus evaluated to figure out what it could be a potential. And that's why it's stated it the way it's stated.
Especially if we could find a way to make this campus police and fire
That's correct.
and move City Hall
Whatever.
and Park Rec.
So,
And my sense of your sort of expression of how easy they've been to work with, I feel like I'm optimistic that they are going to be pretty good at working with us on this. So
I think so.
I feel pretty good
I
about it.
believe that.
okay, we have a motion.
Or we,
Yeah, I don't think we had a second.
You did not have a. motion.
no, because it was not actually part of the
Okay.
fee.
That sounds good.
I move that we accept the ad hoc committee's consultant recommendation.
Second.
Second.
Moved
Okay,
by
give me just one
Zittergruen.
second.
Sorry,
Just want to make sure I get this
that's
right
okay.
before we move on. Okay, so that was, okay, so now Steve, you move forward with this.
Right.
Accept the ad hoc committee's consultant recommendation.
Okay,
I just stole your language from the agenda.
okay. All right,
Was it Luce that seconded?
Mhm.
And Luce seconded.
okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Zittergrun.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Chisel.
thank you.
Motion carried. Okay, consider installation of sidewalk along College Drive between Hilltop Drive and Ridge Road. And this was brought forth by Councilman Zittergruen with agreement from Councilperson Hadley and also myself. You want to give us some information?
I can do background. So this is this would be an enforcement of the city's current code about sidewalks, but it'd be establishing an enforcement priority, basically. We'd be sending a letter to the homeowners who are here tonight, and just saying, this is an expectation, and we're going to do enforcement of this, so it's going to happen. The reason for prioritizing this particular sidewalk when there's lots and lots of places in town where people aren't up to ordinance on sidewalks, including all over that neighborhood, is that this is a heavily used route to school. I talked to Jeremy Brill about possible safe crossing alternatives, and he said, well, one thing that we could do that would really solve this problem is enforce the sidewalk ordinance along the east side of College Drive between Hilltop and Ridge Road, because Luther College is also interested in a safe crossing across from the pool for people in their apartments to access the campus. So Luther's on board with this plan already, and they own half the land that we're talking about. And what this would do is provide the students in that daily edition, which is Crescent Avenue and Hilltop and a few others up there. It would provide them a way of not having to cross the road on College right across from Hillcrest, where there is a curve. Now, my own kids have crossed that road there dozens of times, and it's always kind of a fraught crossing, because once in a while you see a car coming down College Drive, doing 50 or 55, and there's only a few seconds from the time that you see that car to the time it smacks right across that crosswalk. So I think it'd be good for pedestrian safety, and particularly for child safety. That neighborhood is very heavily peopled with children, many of whom walk to the pool a lot. I know that because I used to live in it until last year, and I did a poll of parents in the neighborhood who all seemed to be very excited about this prospect. I just texted old neighbors. It wasn't anything too formal. They thought it was a really good idea, although they all were concerned at the unfairness of, how this does come down on the shoulders of a single landowner. So I guess that's background, and we can move to discussion or whatever.
But it also completes the loop of the Shady Lane to College, or Shady Lane to College that we put in Locust. So there's that whole circle of being able to walk to the pool from other areas without having to worry about crossing until and crossing at that point at Luther. So it does make a lot of sense.
Well, there's no sidewalks over there.
I don't think there is sidewalks on Shady
I mean,
Lane.
there's no sidewalk on
There's no
Shady Lane.
sidewalks on Shady Lane, Sunset, Hilltop.
No, coming down,
Mhm.
you can come across and keep walking.
I mean, are there any sidewalks in Daily Edition?
No.
So the
none.
question is, do we just prioritize Daily Edition and say sidewalks in Daily?
I think, that's a conversation we can have. That will take a long time to happen. And I feel like this is a conversation that we can have and actually have a measurable impact on pedestrian safety pretty quickly.
'Cause there's already a crossing at Ridge and College.
Right.
For the college kids.
And
But this-
Jeremy, I'm sorry.
This down here, there's two driveways right across from there. So depending whether you're going to the pool or going downtown, you don't have any curbs to go up.
Right.
It's a lot better than what it was back in the day.
Jeremy, do you want to talk about Luther and sort of, didn't they say that they were interested in working with the city on a safe crossing up by the pool? Am I getting that detail wrong?
No, that's correct. There is a crossing already at College and Pool, or College and Ridge. It's kind of between the two. And Luther has expressed some desire for improving the safety of that crossing because of the number of students that cross there. So that has been their interest in discussions we've had with them so far. So one idea was a push button flashing rectangular rapid flashing beacon, it's called. So something like that if you've been out to the Freeport Trail, they have one or two along the trail. So
Here's a representative comment from someone who lives in the neighborhood. The safety issue of crossing at Hilltop Drive is a big concern for most of the residents of our neighborhood. With no crosswalk in that corner, that makes it hard to see if cars are coming when looking towards town, not to mention the speeds cars go on College Drive. It's very dangerous. And that this reflects my own experience of raising kids there. I feel like this is just something that we need to move forward with. I personally, if everyone's in agreement with that, or at least enough of us, I think that we should just talk about the fact that it's It's for the benefit of that entire neighborhood. And yet currently the cost of it would simply come on, and a significant cost because the perches are here and they have 180-foot 5 long frontage, which would result in a very pricey enforcement. I don't know what 185-foot of sidewalk costs, but I know it's not cheap, so.
Well, I know that I was amazed at the number of kids that are living in the Daily Edition now. So it is needed. I think we do have the homeowner here. Right, that's okay. Nick and Hannah Perch are the people that own the house that, I mean, because I think it's them and Luther, correct?
Yep, the entire south block of that is,
Okay.
the south half of the block is them and the north half is all Luther.
Okay,
I would just say that I think, if the people in Daily Edition think that this sidewalk is so important, then I agree with Emily. I think we should do the whole neighborhood. Because otherwise, when it comes time to put sidewalks on Hilltop, Sunset and other roads back there, they aren't going to be so in favor of doing a sidewalk. So I would say if you're gonna make this change, then make it with the whole neighborhood if you really want to proceed.
well, how would doing this particular piece not cause you to look at the rest of Daily? Where this would be helpful sooner than working through all of the layout of Daily Edition?
And I think you're saying because we could do this sooner because we would have to do engineering on all of Daily. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, that, and, is it simple to do that? I guess my other question is what's the cost of doing this piece as well?
Right,
I try to get an estimate for it and I haven't heard back from
Okay.
concrete company yet. 180-foot, I mean, Google says it's about $40 a foot for sidewalk, so $8,000 to $10,000. But I don't know if that's accurate, Jeremy.
Today, I'd say it's gonna be more than 5 and less than 10.
Okay.
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
The materials this time are, yeah.
More than 5
All
and
right,
less than
that's
10.
8.
Well,
This is where I'm kind of reminded of the backwater spirits comment, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit about, yes, we know the right thing, but now how can we figure out how to get it done in a way that, I mean, I look at the homeowners here who we are literally talking about one person's burden for an entire community. And that, to me, I want to figure out how to make that right. So it's not, to me, that hurts.
Without
Perhaps-
setting a precedent because we can't afford to pay
I
for
get it.
everyone's
I
sidewalks.
get it. So that's why I want to be
Perhaps
creative in
we
this.
should hear from them.
Yeah, I would love to.
Would,
I got one question first for Captain Herman.
yeah.
Have we had many incidents along here between cars and pedestrians crossing? In your time on the force?
I guess I can't think of many incidents. I know I patrol that area quite a bit and I do see a lot of foot traffic right there. Before and after schools, definitely going to the pool. So I mean, I have seen a lot of foot traffic there. As far as like documented incidents, I guess none that I can speak of anyway.
Okay, I just know from living in that neighborhood and growing up there, I mean, I don't remember anything where any close calls, and we had as many, if not more kids than what are crossing today with larger families in the neighborhood. And the street was a lot busier back then because it was a truck route coming through town.
There is a certain amount of, I mean, and people, I mean, I think when I was at the laundromat, someone talked to me about this, right? People have stopped me about this street and this particular area. So I do have the concern that like one incident is too many, especially if it results in the death of a kid. So I think we need to figure out a solution.
I mean,
to the
I've had
area.
close
And-
calls there
yeah,
and I know
I'm
that's not an
totally on board
incident,
with that.
but
I just want to figure out. how
I'm
we
not
can do it.
waiting for an incident on this one personally. That's,
Okay.
Agreed.
Would you like to come up and talk? Just come up, state your name and address. And you might have to lean down or pull up,
Okay,
one of the
yeah.
two.
My name's Nick Perch. I have owned the property since March. I'm actually trying to renovate it. My primary residence is 605 Plum Street. I just found out at 3 o'clock this afternoon, actually this morning, I heard that on the radio that this was a subject. Like Emily was saying, it seems very unfair that me and my wife are charged with this responsibility of the whole neighborhood, and it seems like there could be more sidewalk along the other side of College Drive there and all of Daily Addition 2. And don't get me wrong, I'm for the safety of the kids. I've seen kids and families crossing that multiple times working there in the past 3 months, and especially since the pool opened. But I don't, like you're saying, it seems a lot, and that's going to be a lot of my hard work is going to be thrown into the sidewalk, and it lands on my shoulders too. So
Mhm.
a little frustrating. But like I said, I understand the need for it, and I would appreciate it if we could look at different options on how to do this instead of it landing on my shoulders. Like you said, I kind of just did a quick concrete analysis, and sorry if this is not even close, but it's going to take 7 or more yards of concrete. I know that's, I mean, $110 a square. I think Jeremy's right on about costing 8, and that's honestly more than I can afford. So
Are you familiar with the concrete business?
yes, I was hoping to be able to do it myself if I have to. I don't do a lot of concrete by any means, but I've done sidewalks around the town before. So
Wanda, is there any way that we can work in conjunction with the landowner and do it similarly to assessments on alleys and whatnot, where we do it a 10-year on the tax roll?
Sure. You can sign waivers.
And just to explain what we're talking, or do you want to explain what you're talking about? Just that we'd kind of pay it up front and then assess you for that cost over a 10-year period. That's accurate,
Right.
Wanda? Yeah.
Right.
So it would spread the hurt out quite a bit.
Right.
But then it hurt for longer.
But,
So
and council, correct me if I'm wrong, that council sets the fiscal rate on assessments or the finance rate.
Yes.
Can we go to 0?
Well, I mean, you can do anything you want,
Right.
but that is going to set a precedent.
No, I know it sets a precedent. Yeah.
But I mean, you can do whatever you want. It also sets a precedence to, I think, participate with the sidewalk. Although in this case, I do think that there is valid reasons for maybe, perhaps looking at that option. And so whether you want the property owner to be responsible for all of it or a portion of it, it can still be done by these waivers. Having.
My personal recommendation is, based on the street committee meeting that we had prior to this meeting, that we table this decision until we have, until we've completed our mobility transition plan, which also looks at connectivity within the city, because this is a connectivity issue, connectivity and safety. And I'd like to hear back from the street department and Upper Explorer land on what best practices might be, and also looking at what strategies we can use for incentivizing and taking the hurt away from people who are being tasked to support their community in mobility.
yes,
So
like I was saying, it's
yeah, it's a big chunk.
my responsibility for all those families, and if
Right.
it could be spread out at least.
So if
somehow.
we could make it less impactful financially, but more impactful from a connectivity standpoint, I think it would be easier to explain to everybody than trying to just do this as a one-off and have it be cohesive.
Can I-
So I would like to make a motion to table.
Motion
Can
to
I ask
table?
one quick question on that? Has there ever been a precedence where, so if you look, there's no sidewalks on Daly. He's one house, but there's a bunch of other houses right on that other side.
And
couldn't
even
we-
south
right,
of our house.
Couldn't we
that
actually
city
assess
property.
that multiple area for putting in this one sidewalk?
We might be able to, but I, again, would like to table and. have
No,
that
but I mean, I
discussion.
think that there's more than just like the burden on one. for
No,
this.
I don't know if you can assess people on sidewalks that aren't landowners, because it's not a public property. That sidewalk becomes private property, right?
Well, it's actually in the right of way, so it would be a public improvement. I think you could look at that. It becomes I think there's a relevant argument because it's about who benefits from it.
Okay.
I'm just not, I can't tell you off the top of my head, like the ratio of how you could do that, or even if you can do it. I think I think it's worth looking into. I think maybe at one point with the sidewalk discussion, there was discussion if you put a sidewalk only on one side of the street, maybe sharing that cost between two sides. And I don't know if there was ever a decision about that, but that's an example.
Is there a legal precedent?
Yeah, if you look under the chapter 26, assessment provisions of the Iowa Code, it does talk about the requirements to assess a private landowner for a public improvement. And there's language in there, and I've looked at it, and it needs to be looked at again, about who can be assessed for an improvement. The argument becomes a little weaker the further away you get from the public improvement about assessing somebody. But I think, certainly when adjoining properties are benefiting from this sidewalk on one person's land, there's a good argument that they should share in that. How they share in it and how much, I can't tell you without looking at it further. But-
Could we do just a crosswalk like we did at Crescent in college? Like how it just basically just
I was
runs across.
just thinking, it sounds more like a crosswalk issue than it does, a sidewalk, in which getting up to that main one of Luther, I understand would be nice, but maybe some signage there at Hilltop might be of use. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're
No,
fine.
no, you're
Jeremy,
fine.
what do you
I mean,
think?
Yeah, so that was the first ask from folks that have approached us was, can we put a crosswalk at Hilltop? We can certainly look at that. I think our concern was because of the curve site visibility, talking with Chief Smutzler, I think that was a shared concern. Also being able to construct an ADA compliant ramp with a retaining wall right there. So it's something, I think it's this was just the second option. And we also need to have some sensitivity to crosswalks at every crossing. So then there'd be one at Crescent, Hilltop, Ridge. I think it just loses, that's a lot of signage and loses some of its sensitivity.
No one seconded Ross's motion to table. I personally don't want to. I feel like we should maybe stay in order here.
I'll second it to table it.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Oh, sorry.
well, you'll have to do the motion, and then there was a motion to table, there's a second to table. If there's any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss the motion to table. I can appreciate the sort of desire for a comprehensive, cohesive, and not doing things one-off. I appreciate that. But the process that I heard you describe doesn't sound like it gets a safe sidewalk for kids in the next year. And I think this seems like a no-brainer. This seems like something, the safer routes thing will obviously say you should have a sidewalk there. We've got a property owner who seems at least amenable to the idea, if not happy about it. I think it's okay to do
Hold
this
up.
one-off.
I think it's fine. I'm just not willing to assess one property owner for a community sidewalk where no one else has sidewalks in the neighborhood. So if we can figure out a plan, I think we can get the sidewalk built yet in a timely manner, but I want to know how we're going to assess it and on whom.
And we may not have to wait for the entire ADA transition plan to be done, but what we might be able to do is assist in spreading out the payments over 10 years. And that was also my reason for tabling.
Well, and it sounds like there's more details to be worked out, such as that, to be discussed currently
Like-
as well.
I mean, I think we could be creative with assessments over a long period of time. It seems like John gave hints for that. I mean, I guess I'm okay waiting a month and figuring out how we can do this in a way that's fair, palatable, whatever. I don't want to wait for the completion of a study or a plan to do what seems like a no-brainer.
That's fair.
That's fair.
That totally
Is
think
there
that's
any
fair.
other discussion?
Would the
sorry.
assessment just be like a payment I'd be required to make every month, or would that be
I think it'd
on
be
my
added to your tax bill.
taxes?
Those
Property
payments are
taxes.
made once a year.
So if I were to sell this property, it would be the new
Mhm.
owners?
And you would
Okay.
have to disclose it to your buyer that there's
Right.
an
And so
ongoing
that's
assessment.
gonna
That's right,
cause
John?
me issues too in selling it in the future, is
It-
if I have a $10,000 payment they have to pay off too.
it wouldn't be any different than if you were paying an assessment on a street, like if we reconstructed the street
Right.
or, so that it does seem that way, except that any public improvement on any house would have it. So like our alleyways, that's how people do it.
Yep.
Anyone who's had to put in sidewalk,
Right.
would have to have it too.
Yeah. I
So it's not
understand that.
uncommon, I guess, if that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, it still adds, away from my bottom line and I have to raise the price, then makes things harder to sell. And if you guys didn't see the property before, it was a dump.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to get a nice family in
And,
there.
and I mean, we always appreciate when people make improvements to the city. This process is partially making sure that all of the properties in that in addition, including yours, are worth more to their owners
Right.
because their kids
Right.
have safe routes.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion?
So should
Mhm.
we take this to streets at the next, we have a next street committee coming up.
How about if we finish this motion?
Sorry,
and say-
sorry.
Thank you. I'd like to do roll call. That's to table. The motion is to table.
Hadley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Chisel, Sittergren.
No.
Okay, motion passed to table.
Thank you.
Now I'll go back to,
Oh, no, I mean, I think in light of this and for expediency, we should put it in the next streets committee, which is coming up from our other thing, right?
okay. Thank you. Board and commission appointments, mayor appointment to one open civil service position. I have had applications for this and I wanted to make sure that I looked very closely. When the mayor makes appointments, it's important to look at what each commission is. And the Civil Service Commission definition is the things that are involved in that. I'm just going to go through real quickly. One is carrying out the duties prescribed by law. The Iowa Code is Chapter 400. The City Code is 2.28. To prescribe rules and regulations for the conduct of their work for examinations of the applicants. So what they do is they examine the applicants for the fire and safety. To certify the council list of personnel qualified. After they've looked at the qualifications for the appointment, they recommend it to the council. And then to hear appeals involving the suspension, demotion, or just discharge of civil service personnel. It is what is more known as an executive judicial commission. It's a local commission. We have had Larry Stevenson, Rhonda Albert, and Annette Swinefus. Annette is the one that is up. I did talk with Larry Stevenson, and just as he has told me in the past, he likes doing it, but it's just if there's somebody else that would want to come up. This is a 3-person, and so I feel that it's key that we have somebody that actually has a history with it and knows how to work with the appeals, and then also train as you go along. For that reason, and for looking at the candidates, I'm recommending for appointment Steve Rundy. I also would keep Nori Hadley's application on file and work to see when there would be somebody else, or if Larry says, no, I just want to get out. But I really feel that it's important that there are members that are on that can work through that appeal process. In looking at Steve's application, I felt his experience with this business fit it very well for the Civil Service Commission. So my recommendation for appointment is with Steve Rundy.
I move to approve Steve Rundy to the Civil Service Commission.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to, while I don't want this to be a conflict of interest issue, I would just point back to the June 7th agenda and the previous agenda that we've had this spring, where it shows 2 open positions on civil service.
Yes.
So I believe that there are 2 open positions on civil service, correct?
There are not. There's only one because Larry Stevenson is staying on. And I did have another application, but as I looked at the qualifications are for this particular commission, they have to live within the city for at least 5 years, and the other person.
Wanda,
has
is it a
not.
3-person commission?
It's just a
Just-
3 per
Just
person.
Always?
commission.
Person.
That's
It's been
all it
3?
is. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit? I mean, maybe we can't do this. I don't even know. Is there any benefit knowing that Larry actually probably wants off? Is there any benefit to sort of appointing now and appointing in a few months, but having
It could be a
Nori-
potential for that.
I'm just thinking if we could train both Steve and Nori at the same time, maybe then we have a stronger commission.
You've got to have just 3.
Right.
And Larry does not, he does not, necessarily want to go off. But if there were people that came up, he would. But so far, we've only had newer people that have been on.
No, I'm just wondering, I mean, again, not knowing Larry's position, all I'm saying is that Nori wouldn't necessarily be a voting member then, but could be trained so that if Larry needed to come off immediately or knowing that he's thinking about this, maybe we could sort of prepare someone, given the logistics of the commission.
Didn't we have the discussion that Larry had been on 20-some years?
He had, but we have not had somebody that had the qualifications that he does when you're looking at a civil
Didn't he
hearing.
actually step off for a little bit?
He
then
did,
asked
and
to
then he
come back
came,
on?
and then he came back on.
So when is his 6 years up?
He is 6 years or
I believe it's 24.
2024. They're staggered terms.
Thank
But
you.
now I can look into to see how do we train people to be able to come up to that as well.
I mean, I guess if it's a commission where we're worried about training, it does make sense to then train more people so that we have it in line, given that if something happened to Larry,
Correct.
we would
I
lose that.
agree.
So if it's important that we're looking at that, then I think it's important that we're succession planning for that.
That's correct. No, I
That would be
agree.
my only-
That's why I said I would keep her application on hand for that position. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Zittergrun.
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. City manager, department heads.
Okay, a few things tonight, and this is something that came up after the agenda went out, that I kind of got finalized. I knew it was brewing out there, but I didn't have any information to put on the agenda. But last year at this time, we had it's like a history bus that was coming into town.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, you
yes,
remember
that's
that?
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now they're coming back and they want to come on July 7th. Of course, you don't have a meeting until the 6th. So I couldn't really put it, I don't want to wait that long. So I've tentatively told them that it's okay that they can come in. Actually, it's on a Saturday, so they won't be over in the co-op parking lot because it's farmer's market day. But I think we'll put them over here if it's acceptable to everybody, over here in the parking lot, across the street here. And I've tentatively approved that unless I have any concerns from council.
The 7th is a Wednesday, I believe. I think the 8th, right? I think you said
Yes,
Saturday. I think
yeah,
it's a Wednesday.
yeah. And our next council meeting will be the 6th
Okay,
because the 5th is Memorial Day or Labor Day,
sure.
4th of July.
4th of July. We got you.
I'll
You
get
were
to
good
it.
job.
You'll get one
I'll get
eventually.
to it.
Good.
Yes.
Thanksgiving anyway.
Anyway, I didn't get Thanksgiving or Christmas in there.
Hey, do they need electricity?
They do need electricity and there is electricity on the one pole. So, and they did have a generator if that wasn't the case, but, so I have tentatively okayed that. Will be getting me a certificate of insurance.
$2 million,
So-
right? Because wasn't that the recommendation of our insurance council?
Well, that was the recommendation for being in the street.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted
Otherwise
to make sure
it's-
we
otherwise
followed
it's-
your
Right,
recommendation
but
for
otherwise
everything,
it's a
right?
million when they're not.
No,
on
2
the
million,
street.
right? Yeah.
But
I have it,
So-
I have it on my
Sure.
I have it on my calendar to look at our insurance rates in September. Because I do think we need to have that conversation systematically at some point, not time by time.
yeah, So
Just to clarify, which was it? How much? What's the
Million.
a
insurance?
million.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And they,
And of course, a lot of places have more than that anyway, but I don't know what this group will have, but
we did
I'll get it.
previously approve this last year, right?
It was approved last year. It was just going to be in a different location, but since it's on Wednesday
Correct.
and that's Farmers Market Day.
Yeah.
Which is why they wanted to be located down by Farmers.
Right.
Right.
So that's the only place I could think of to put them, that they're off the street and
I think it's
relatively safe.
I think it's a prudent administrative decision on your part to do that. So
Yep.
thank you.
thank you. Okay, then very quickly, I was just going to report Chopper's not here, but Chopper was, last week, he was at the ISAC meeting, that's the Iowa State Association of Counties, at their IT meeting. And so he has been elected as a member of their board. And as part of that board, there's a subcommittee of that is the ICTS Advisory Committee that has to do with IT. So he is on that subcommittee as well. And while on that ICIT board, he's also involved with the security tech team. So anyway, he's being involved in a lot of stuff on a state level, which I think is really advantageous for the city. So anyway, I wanted to report that because he wasn't here, so I wanted to let you know that. And then just a brief update on our hiring process for anyone who doesn't know. We have 4 candidates that have been selected. We are working with the consultant. Lorraine and I have been working with the consultant on kind of solidifying the schedule for Friday. And we haven't got that yet. I was going to call today and see if we could make a few changes to what they were proposing. But sorry, I did not have time. It was a crazy day. So anyway, I'll work on that first thing in the morning. And then we're working on coming up
Been
with a
working
list of people
together.
that can help take people around on the tours, and then to be involved in the process to bring to you for consideration. So as soon as I have more information on that, we will get it to you.
There will be a community event at the hotel.
Right. And then
Hotel, okay.
there's a community event. And like I said, we're working on the time frame of all of that.
And has requests for questions come out to department heads? Or,
Okay, say that again.
well, we had talked about how we were going to request questions, input, right, to the
Right.
consultant. So
Right.
just give people a chance to like, this is a question I think the panel should ask them.
Right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
But yes, we are working on it. We had a discussion with department heads today to see if there was any questions they specifically would like to ask. We did have I know the consultant kind of had it broke down of the 3 committees, some council, some community participation, and then some department heads on each one. And I know department heads voiced some concern today that they would kind of like to be their own interview group.
Sure.
And so Lorraine and I have been
Yep.
taking a look at that and, seeing if we
Should be
can't
able to do
accommodate that.
Could council observe
Request.
that panel?
Pardon?
If it was all department heads, could council be there for observation so we can hear the candidate respond?
Well, you'll be in your own interviews
Yeah.
because they'll all be going on at the same time.
We have
There's going to
done
be
that.
3
We
interview
have
groups.
done that in the past when we have interviewed, like when we interviewed Chad. It was more of an open discussion that they could ask the department heads different questions too. But we can work.
I would
with
just want to
anything.
observe and hear that. I mean, right, if I'm going to be on the committee that's going to hire him, I'd like to hear how he answers department heads.
Each interview group
Mhm.
will have 12 questions. So each interview group will be asking different questions. And they feel that 12 is probably the optimal number of questions to get through in 45 minutes because they're proposing 45 minutes for each interview. So the questions that group 1 asks are different from group 2 and group 3. So
I-
technically there's 36 questions.
I get that. So what I'm asking is, as a council person, do I get to hear the interviewee answer all 36 of those
No.
questions?
I don't know how you do that and get out of here in a weekend.
The one thing we can do though is that each group designate 1 person to bring back to the council. There is a council meeting or a council gathering at the end of the discussion and they could bring back in their meeting what their recommendations were.
So you're saying that every council member is only going to hear 12 questions asked of the candidate?
Yes, yes. Now, Lorraine and I did talk about, and I have not talked about this with the consultant yet as to
Right.
how technically they recommend handling it. Just in our discussion, we just threw out, well, maybe each interview group ranks them based on their interview.
Mhm.
And then when everyone comes together, that's a collective point to start your discussion.
And we
mean,
will
and
be
that's
getting
just
the
a
questions
suggestion
out,
that if-
but if you have certain questions that you want to ask, you want to make sure that you get them to them.
Yep.
Yep. So we just started working, pulling it together, so.
Right.
So we
We'll have
could
more
put one
cons-
or two council members on that group, in that.
We
department
have-
head Group, otherwise no council members will know
Yeah.
what was said.
We can make sure that we have somebody in there. It'll take away a council person from another group, but at least if there's a representative from the council on that
It'd be
group,
nice if somebody from the
okay.
council-
We'll make sure and try and work
Right.
with that. for
Well,
sure.
yeah, and we can go back to, what the consultant was going to do is just split everybody up evenly. I
I
mean, we
like
can
it split
split
No.
it.
evenly.
I like
No,
that idea.
pardon?
I like it split evenly. Sorry. I just-
Okay.
There's a certain amount of,
Well, I tell you what, let us keep
Right.
working with it. We've only
Sure.
just started working with it today.
Right.
So I know, just as I told them, I understand where they're coming from and I
Right.
understand what you're saying too. So,
well, I guess I could equally say that I also wouldn't want department heads not to know the other 12 questions and how. they
well, and
respond.
that's part of the
I mean, there's-
discussion that
Yeah, I
Wanda
mean, I
and
guess
I
it
had
goes all
too.
this way. It just seems like the more people that can hear,
Right, but to be clear, whatever group you're in, whatever group Lorraine's in,
Mhm.
whatever group anybody is in, you're only going to hear the 12 questions.
You're right.
You're not going to hear the other.
And that's
24.
that is kind of the process when you're going through this many interviews. But you'll have opportunity at the end to also hear. You're going to have, you're going to know some of the questions. If there's something you want to know, you could ask them when we have the greet and meet.
are they going to be taped?
I don't
No,
think so. I don't think we have the
I don't think
capability
so.
to do that because we're going to have to be
Yeah.
in 3 separate rooms and we were kind of struggling
Right.
with where to find rooms here and have,
Yeah.
relative privacy throughout City Hall. Given some of our dynamic today, there's those constraints
Yeah.
that we have again. But so I don't think so.
But
But if you
please,
have
please
questions,
know that we're right in the process of
Right.
Yeah,
them.
I- yeah.
So
we're
we will
working
get
with
back
it.
to you too on exactly.
If you
how
have
it is
specific
done.
questions, I will get you the questions that we have. I can probably get those sent out tomorrow. Again, today was kind of a crazy day and I didn't,
And those are not set in stone.
And
So,
those are
but you-
not
and
set in
You need to send
stone.
out all 3 sets.
right,
Okay,
right. I'll send out all 3 sets, but there's questions for group 1, group 2, and group 3.
okay.
And so, and those questions can change. So if anyone has specific things, we
Right.
can get them onto one of those lists.
That's right.
And I told department heads that as well this morning, if you have specific things that you want asked, but it'd be good if you saw the questions first,
Yep.
Yep.
to
agreed.
know
For sure.
Agreed.
what's
yep.
on there and what's not.
Well, and
So, and I'll get that to you
I
tomorrow.
want to make sure that there may be some that we'd want to take off and put some on that we want on there. So,
Yep. Yep.
So,
okay. Anything else?
I think that's it from me.
Anything from departments? Randy?
Well,
Oh,
I'll speak,
well,
Mayor.
oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, especially when I said, oh, Mike O'Hara, are you going to be there tonight? You can
Especially,
say
The
something?
mayor asked me to speak. so
Yeah,
here I
thank you,
am.
Mike. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So anyways, Lorraine asked me to speak about the water table. We check our water table at the plant throughout the year. We got pipes that go almost 30 feet in the ground. During this time of year, we're very concerned when we have a high water table because our tanks can actually pop like a bobber right out of the ground. So we have pressure relief valves on all of our tanks. Well, normally this time of year, water table's at 12 feet and currently it's at 18 feet. We've been dropping 3 to 6 inches a week.
Wow.
Just from last Thursday, we've dropped 3 inches. So I mean, just the rain that we got over the weekend, it just soaked right in. But not a concern for us, but it is something that we keep an eye on and document it weekly. So. Does that answer your question, Lorraine?
It does, and I'm
Awesome.
glad you held me down. Okay, I'm looking over. Is there anybody else that want? Oh, Andy.
By the time you meet again, Judy Severson will be out of City Hall. She's been here over 44 years. Going into retirement. She's not agreed to any type of coffee type event on her last day, like a lot of longtime employees. So get a chance, it might be just pop in and she's done great service.
Yes, she has.
And would you, are you able to state kind of what you thought you might set up in honor of her? Okay, we'll just.
I think we should get her a T-shirt.
That is still
like a
under
flag football
consideration.
T-shirt.
Okay, I'm glad. You know, you're great. When I ask you something, how diplomatic you are, say, no, Lorraine, I want to talk about it. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Okay, now I'll go to the council. Randy? Emily?
I had a question. I think is Good Times closed because it's on our agenda that we're going to meet there, so we need to rearrange where we meet.
You asked me to put it on, so I
No, I
put
know,
it
but
on.
then they're closed.
Yes, I
So,
don't know these
We
things.
probably, I like the idea that we have this public meeting that people can come, but we probably need to find a location. that
Try,
is open.
maybe try to find a location for you.
Yeah, so for next meeting, we won't be meeting at Good Times. If anybody's going to meet us there tonight, it's not open.
That's great.
But for next meeting, we'll come up with a new location. I am curious if, thinking about the fire station, if we want to, so I don't know how many council members, but I am thinking, is this a role that Public Safety Committee should now join the ad hoc committee? So at
Mhm.
least we have more voices in the room.
Mhm.
And those on public safety, if we'd be open to meeting more often about the fire station specifically. And if we need to call, we could call it a new thing, but I am thinking we're on public safety, we probably should start.
You can just call it public
Join.
safety.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
So-
fine.
that sounds
I
good.
think that's a good idea.
Okay, and then I think we can talk about then at that meeting, inviting some community members, and let's just start getting the committee going on that process, if everybody's amenable to that.
Okay.
Then the other question is, do council people have mailboxes here?
No.
Okay, only
Yes,
because I
they
got the
do.
mail.
No,
Well,
they do.
Well, we have one mailbox for council.
I
So
know.
there's one mailbox that's in there that we put all the council stuff until we come to the meeting and then we bring it in here.
okay,
Okay.
because the date, maybe the person wrote the letter and didn't change the date. The date's March, and I'm like, where's this letter been? But maybe it just came and,
Well, for a while there, people weren't coming in.
okay. So just now I know I have a mailbox.
Okay,
So
that
yeah,
sounds good.
it's just a generic mailbox that, and then we try to bring it in then for council meetings.
And then I am on vacation from the 25th through the 4th, just to put it out there that Emily Neal will be gone from that date.
Okay.
Not, I'm going to be very European and say not available by email.
Very
And
European.
what?
Very European.
Not available by email. Other than that, enjoy the weather and thank goodness for the rain.
Yeah. Andy,
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Steve?
Nothing.
Two quick things. I think Andy missed his chance to just let everyone know that the flag football teams I coached went 13-1 this year. And
Is that wins
and
or
next year I'd like a
losses?
red shirt, Andy. The second thing I want to say is that just a big thank you to the Perches. I should have called you Friday when I saw that this was on the agenda. I was in Des Moines all weekend busy. I'm sorry that I didn't call you to give you more time, but I'm, it's pretty great when you can call someone and say, I'm going to try to get the city to charge you a bunch of money. And they weren't angry. They asked good questions. They considered, counterpoints to their thoughts and energy. It's just it's really refreshing to have such reasonable people, and I'm glad that you're part of this city and you're doing what you're doing to make it better. Thanks for being part of this conversation.
Ross?
Just a personal thing. I had solar put on the top of the Amundsen's building this week. It was turned on. Worked with Alliant, with our new building inspector.
Mhm.
The whole process was great. And a nod to Winneshiek Energy District, especially Joel Zook, for helping us with the Soul Smart process. that we adopted last year because it actually did make the process of putting solar on a commercial building much more simple.
Good.
And I just encourage any other business owners, especially now that the tax credits have been extended, I encourage other business owners to look into the potential of solar because it's pretty straightforward and we have local contractors that are very knowledgeable.
Okay. Kirk,
Nothing, Mayor, except I've had solar on my house for about 6 years and it's nearly paid for.
good. Okay, you're going to have to just sit back for a minute. I have a letter to read. It's Dear Mayor Borowski, council persons, and Johnsons from Wanda. It is with extreme mixed emotion that I submit my notice of retirement as your city clerk treasurer effective October 8th, 2021. The past 42 years have been rewarding, challenging, and filled with the opportunity to learn and grow each day. There have been days of laughter, joy, frustration, and tears as we have worked through daily challenges in our efforts to make a difference in our community. I have been blessed to have worked with so many talented and committed individuals, including staff, elected and appointed officials, the business community and residents alike, along with the myriad of colleagues across the state I am fortunate to call my friends. I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with organizations dedicated to the betterment of cities, including the Iowa League of Cities, Iowa Municipal Workmen's Compensation Association, and the Iowa Municipal Financial Officers Association. Many thanks to everyone involved for the support and encouragement I have received over my long and satisfying career. I can only hope I have made a positive difference in my community along the way. There are so many memories I take with me, which I will cherish all my days, and rest I will just leave behind. With humble gratitude, Wanda Hemsat. I made it through it. Yeah, I know. We debate. Yeah, it's nothing like, oh, do you think you could read this tonight at the meeting? And I'm going.
I move not to accept the.
Yeah, that's
letter.
right. That's right.
Table, yeah.
Um,
I'm
um,
sorry to dump that on you, but I never would have got through it.
that, well, in the long run, I appreciate so much everything you've ever done for us. I also appreciate the timetable on this for being able to work through as we're moving forward with the new city manager. And I know that that will go smoothly as well. There had been questions that came up, but most importantly, we're going to have to send you with some mentor about how and teach you how it's going to be. Once you go, you're going to be able to go do what you want to go. And I know you don't do that too often. So, but if at least we have a few months to work through it.
I'll do what I can to help.
Yeah, I'm
and
sure
make
you will.
things go
I'm sure
smoothly
you
and-
will.
And to make sure things go smoothly for your new staff.
I am sure that, you will do everything you can as far
I
as
will.
being to work
I
with
will.
And just make sure we can have coffee and donuts on your last day.
that.
I'm kind of with Judy.
So with that, I don't think there's anything else I could really put forth. So with, you haven't.
No, I was just going to say with that letter, then I would recommend we had a personnel committee meeting
Yeah.
pretty soon. if,
We'll get started on that. And I did have a conversation with Wanda earlier today and she reminded me that the appointment of a city clerk by code is for the city council to determine who we hire. Much similar to hiring a city manager.
Sure. So could I ask, and maybe it's not possible, but I'm gone in a week.
We would not, we'll make sure you're back.
Oh, I was thinking we could do it before, but
No,
okay.
no, actually, I think that that's too soon. I know Wanda and I had talked too about reviewing the job descriptions and looking at potential things, but only that we need to have a bit more time because of the other things that are on the
Sure,
table.
that's fine. Okay.
Yeah. And I will be in consultation with you as far as Personnel Committee is concerned, so we can get and work with that. So, anybody want to adjourn this meeting? Thank you.